right, let's see. All right, yo, what is good, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP. Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast. Got my man, undisputed world champ. How you doing, brother?
It is great to be here once again. The highlight of the week, man. The Sports PSP podcast, man. Highlight of the week, man. Glad to be here. It's always an honor and a privilege to be on the GOAT Show.
Hey,
Always an honor
man,
to be on here.
always a pleasure having you on. Love having you on the pod, man. Hopefully we're gonna get some more people. I just got a text from my man Brandon from the Block Podcast. Go check out his podcast every Monday nights, the Throwdown Podcast. Also, go check out his basketball podcast as well. There's a lot of great content as well. Of course, with Kenny, Casual, of course, Luis, all of them. Champ, tomorrow NBA playoffs, man. Something exciting. Can't wait to watch, man. What do you what are you looking forward heading into the NBA playoffs?
What I'm looking forward to is this, man. I'm just looking forward to seeing is just if, and that's a big if, the Lakers are going to come out and play their best against the Denver Nuggets, or are they going to get swept? As you know, I'm a Laker fan
Yes.
and all, but I want to see, and people think I'm rooting for them to lose, but I'm looking to see if they're going to go out there and punch the Denver Nuggets in the mouth and show them what they are capable of doing. We all know what they're capable of doing, and what they've been doing throughout the season is two different things. And some people blame Darvin Ham, some people blame the personnel decisions that surround AD and LeBron, but it's a multitude of things. The lineup is not quite there at times. And, there are some personnel issues on this team, but I want to see how they are going to conduct themselves against that team. Another team that I would like to, if I can, I would like to see what this OKC team is going to do.
Yeah, they just clinched the number one seed, and I think if I'm not mistaken, don't they have the youngest roster in NBA history?
Yes, and I can say this, man. I know he has not won championships as of yet, but Sam
And
Presti
Presti.
needs a raise in the worst way. I have the only person who I have seen build teams from the ground up like this repeatedly is Jerry West.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, usually when you have a team, how can you top drafting 3 Hall of Famers? Westbrook, Harden, KD, and then drafting Serge on top of that. Then you turn right around and you get the number 1 seed with the youngest team. Ironically, you went to the finals with the youngest team in the NBA during the time when you had Kevin Durant. And this
Mm-hmm.
team is only getting better. And the thing is, it's all homegrown. No big free agent, no big trade, all homegrown with draft picks. So I would say this: people talk about Jerry Krause, people talk about Jerry West, and I know, like I said, I know he has not won any championships yet. He hasn't won a championship as of yet as a general manager. But Sam Presti really needs to get his flowers on this, because if you could go from that team that you had in the early 2010s and then go through a slight not even a slight rebuilding period, because they were still making the play in and doing
Think of
things like that
think of the amount of talent he's accumulated. I mean, from Kevin Durant to Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Serge Ibaka. Now with SGA, you get Chet Holmgren. I mean, the embarrassment of
Presti definitely
riches.
deserves his flowers. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he. I mean, you couldn't say it any better, brother. I mean, you couldn't say it any better. I mean, OKC, man, it's like I don't know what Sam Presti has been doing, even though he hasn't captured a championship, but the way he has gotten young talent and to develop them, it's amazing to see. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to be, because again, the Warriors. I mean, I'm right now. I'm not even watching the play in tournament. I wish I was watching the play in tournament with the guys right now with my friends. But the Kings, they beat down the Golden State Warriors. If I recall, Klay Thompson didn't even score not 1 point. Not a
Uh,
single point in that game. Champ, I picked the Warriors. I mean, because I thought championship pedigree, experience, when it comes to a game of that magnitude, you just can't ignore the Golden State Warriors. But the Sacramento Kings, they showed up ready to play. Shout out to Keegan Murray and also to the other young players on that team, man. Is this the end of the Golden State Warriors?
you hate to see it, but the thing is, usually you see the death of a dynasty, and usually their death is in the finals. You saw with the early Lakers, or you saw with the early Lakers when when Kobe and Shaq, the end of a dynasty was in the finals. You saw it in the finals with the Showtime Lakers. Usually, you want these things to end in a passing of the torch type of game. But sometimes, as we saw with the Bad Boy Pistons and teams like that, it doesn't end that way. Sometimes, and I hate to say this, but sometimes teams have a habit of keeping players too late rather than releasing them too early. And I think it's been time for them to reboot that team. It had been time for them to reboot that team. After that last championship that they scored, they should have rebooted that team as of then. You could have kept Steph, you could have kept Draymond, but it was apparent to everyone that a lot of players that were around them at that point in time were coming towards the end. And I really think that this is the end of the dynasty, unless they can really, really pull one out of the hat at this point. I think this is the end. They need to really start making trades. Don't keep these players too late. Go ahead, start moving off of some of these players. Free Steph. He brought you guys something that has not been seen since Run TMC and the We Believe Warriors. Let him be traded unless he doesn't want to leave. Let him go out gracefully, and don't be selfish as a franchise. Release these players, trade these players, get some assets for them. You can at least get 3 first rounders for Steph right now. At least, at the minimum, 3 first rounders.
Where would you trade Steph?
That's a very, very good question. Well, I'm not going to be biased and say something like that. I was about to say the Lakers, but that's a biased statement.
You just want shooters.
That's a very, very biased statement. I would have to say I would not know the answer to that question, because the thing is, you have to look for fit at this point in time. You have to look for fit. I wouldn't argue against the Sixers, maybe. Give Joel Embiid another option outside of Maxey at this point. Give him another shooter.
He goes from Seth Curry to Steph Curry. Okay, I see he there.
Yeah, so yeah, maybe send him to the Sixers at this point in time. Whatever you do, don't go to don't go to Brooklyn, and don't go to Phoenix. Whatever you do, but I think it's quite that time. I really can't tell you which team I can see him on right now. But the thing is, they need to go ahead and start making the trade and start breaking this dynasty up before it gets real, real out of hand. And what I mean by out of hand, we saw what happened with Kobe towards the end of that time, where it was just every time you looked around, it was injury after injury after injury after injury. You just couldn't catch a break. And I think it's just that time for that dynasty to come to an end. You had a great run. You just can't do it much better than that. You won one. You went to 4 finals in a row. You won 2 in a row with the great KD. You won 1 without him. 4 championships that the Golden State Warriors haven't seen since the great Rick Barry. So it's time to start breaking up that dynasty at this point. They're no longer what they were. It's time. Do not keep these players too late, and treat them gracefully. Retire their jerseys. Give them great exit ceremonies. But it's time to make business decisions and move on.
All right. I can understand that. I don't know. I mean, Steph seems pretty content no matter what happens, because at the end of the day, he's 36 years old. He's without question the greatest shooter in NBA history, a bona fide first ballot Hall of Famer,
Yes.
game changer, someone who definitely changed the game of basketball, because now there's so much of an emphasis on shooting the basketball. I don't see them cutting letting go or moving on or trading Steph. Klay Thompson, on the other hand, yeah, that's a concern because of the injuries. And even though he's giving you some flashes here and there, but I just don't see Klay Thompson being the same. Another player that you didn't mention, Champ, Draymond Green. You know, they've dealt with, and Draymond, we all know for a fact, even though he could be emotional and temperamental from time to time, he is the heart and soul of the Warriors. As far as defense, as far as leadership, and what he brings to the table. And I got a comment right here. It's from my brother Mark Anthony. Appreciate you, my brother. Go check him out, man. He's a New York brother. It might be curtains for the Warriors, little bro. Klay looking like when the Monstars took the players, powers in Space Jam. Yes, that is an interesting quote right there, boy.
That's a good one right there. That was a nice one.
Yeah. Mark is my actual big brother. You know, shout outs to him. Shout outs to New York. Does a lot of great things. Shout outs to you, brother. But yeah, he does make a great point in that regard right there, man. I'm gonna tell you the player that I'm interested in seeing in the playoffs. And I'm surprised that no one has even mentioned his name. Of course, I'm interested in Luka versus the Clippers. Because we've seen, even though that the Mavericks have lost to the Clippers, Luka has put up astronomical numbers.
Yes.
And he's in the discussion for the MVP. Although I have, wait a minute, I don't want to spoil it. We're going to discuss that later.
Yes.
Anthony Edwards.
Yes.
Anthony Edwards. By the way, from your state, champ, Georgia, plays for your former team, the Georgia Bulldogs, although we know they're synonymous when it comes to football, college football. But Anthony Edwards, no doubt about it, he was a stud coming out of college, former number 1 overall pick. I mean, he is electric, man, and he got that dog in him. I know you don't like hearing that term dog, but he's not afraid of the moment, man, and he's going up against, if I'm not mistaken, the Phoenix Suns. And a player that he grew up idolizing so much is one Kevin Durant. And I got to give shout outs to Hot Take Kenny because he has been making the argument for Anthony Edwards over Kevin Durant. I think Anthony Edwards, if he has a good or great playoff performance, a statement performance, and if the Timberwolves end up having another top 3 season, top 3 seed in the Western Conference, we may have discussions about Anthony Edwards winning MVP. Maybe. I mean, even though we can't ignore Jokic, we can't ignore all these other players, but if Anthony Edwards have a statement game, this could be a great start for MVP season, MVP campaign in 2024. And when you look at him, I mean, 6'4", 220. I told you, if I would take him over Ja Morant and Zion Williamson because he's versatile. Offense, he can give you some scoring. He's improved as a passer. He's improved as a playmaker. Ain't no way you're going to stop him from attacking the basket. We saw the dunk that he gave on John Collins. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like the best is yet to come with him, man. That's the player I'm intrigued to see in the playoffs. As much as I want to see Luka versus the Clippers, I'm more interested in seeing KD versus Anthony Edwards. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, as far as Luka versus the Clippers, if I can piggyback on that, I mean, isn't Kawhi hurt again?
Yes.
I mean, is it some of the swellings? So
which means we're going to have to expect James Harden to step up. And we all know that he struggled in the playoffs. Paul George, I mean, the Mavs have a good chance because, again, we don't know what are we going to see from Harden. Paul George, the only concern I have with health. I don't have the concerns about the playoff demons anymore. Mm-hmm. I think he kind of dispelled that during the 2021 playoffs. Last year, he didn't play due to injury. The only reason why the Clippers lost in that series is because one, Kawhi Leonard's health.
Yes.
It's a big, huge question mark.
Yes.
But the key factor, I can't believe he's an X factor, is Russell Westbrook. Because if Russ can give you some energy, and if he can give you and he can still give you some defense here and there, and if he can give you some points coming off the bench, I think that's something that the Clippers can look forward to. As for the Mavericks, Luka's going to give you buckets, and we know what Kyrie's going to do, and we all know what the other players around the team. But I think this is going to be a tight series, but I still think the Clippers win this series in 7. I would not be surprised if the Mavericks won it, but I think the Clippers, if it comes to a series in the game 7 at LA, I'm going to go with the Clippers. What's your thoughts?
I'm going to go with Luka, man. I think he finally gets over the hump. And I think Kawhi not being there once again is going to really start to mess with the continuity of this team. And as much as we all love James Harden, this is not the same James Harden that we saw in Houston. And even though we saw him do great things in Houston, like go to a Western Conference Finals, even back then there was some doubts about it. So I think with Kawhi being out at this point, I think that's gonna have an effect on this team. And I'm not gonna lie, I think Luka and Kyrie is hungry to get that first playoff series out the way. I think this is going to be a good series, but I think they are hungry to get over those playoff demons. And I think that they're going to take it in 6.
All right. And just to let you know, champ, Kawhi Leonard, right knee inflammation. He is listed as questionable for game 1. But we got Harrison in the building. How you doing, Harrison?
I'm doing good, bro. It's been a minute. It's been a hot minute since I've been on. It's just been working my ass off with school and content. It feels good to be back. It feels good to be back.
Always good to be back, man. We're just talking about the NBA playoffs. Which team, which player are you looking forward to heading into the NBA playoffs?
Oh, of course, I got to go with my guy, Jason Tatum. I mean, I'm always excited to look at the Duke players. Grayson Allen, Jason Tatum, and all the other Derek Lively, Paulo Banchero. I'm the only team I'm really excited for is to see the Orlando Magic. I don't know. Have they been struggling recently? Have they been struggling recently? Because I haven't seen a single NBA game. I know Paulo Banchero's been cooking with the Magic.
They haven't been as good as they were early in the season, but I can't wait to see what this young Magic team has. I'm also interested in seeing the Pacers versus Bucks series because there's going to be a lot of pressure on Doc Rivers. Because Lord have mercy. I mean, you fired the head coach, and I don't know if what was his record. I think it was like 30-13, something around that time.
Yes.
And Doc gets another opportunity. And before, he was on ESPN doing broadcasting with Mike Breen and Doris Burke, and shout outs to both of them. But I don't know what's next for the Milwaukee Bucks. You brought in Damian Lillard. You traded him for Jrue Holiday because of the pick and roll, but it's not the type of season that Milwaukee fans anticipated. They still finished top 2, top 3 in the Eastern Conference, but not the way they anticipated. Doc Rivers, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I would not be surprised if we see another choke job because Doc Rivers, he hasn't been to the conference finals since the lockout season. You've blown 3-1 leads in your career. You've blown multiple 3-2 leads. And the clock's ticking. And I don't know if you're going to get another opportunity, man. It just seemed like to me the only reason why they fired the head coach, I can't remember his name, because of whether on the court chemistry with the team or whatever. But Doc Rivers, you've had numerous chances. You got to at least get them to a conference finals with this team.
I don't think he can do it. And my thing is, of all the coaches in the world, why would you get Doc Rivers in the middle of the season? I don't understand the move. You could have promoted someone on your staff. I mean, that was a possibility. Someone who knew the players and the players have already had a rapport with. But you go get Doc River, who doesn't have a great history in the playoffs. And the thing is, unlike a lot of coaches, you can't say he didn't have the talent.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say he had Kobe's Lakers down 3-2. Had them. Could have had the second championship. Dud. Orlando. 3-1 lead. Dud. Had Lob City. Dud. Didn't even make it past the semifinals. Dud. Went to Philadelphia. Dud. So how many great teams are you going to be able to get before you see that he's the problem? I mean, I put him in the same category as Lenny Wilkins. The thing is, I feel like that Lenny Wilkins kept getting jobs because of that 1979 NBA championship. And after that NBA championship, he only made one conference finals. One. And look at the talented team Lenny Wilkins had. He had.
Oh, I'm sorry, champ. We got your man here, Riddell. How you doing, brother?
What's good? What's good? What's going on? What's going on?
Oh, we just discussing some NBA playoffs, man.
Oh man. Well, I tell you what. You see what the Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat doing to the Chicago Bulls right now?
Tragic.
You
My
had
God.
to throw it to a Chicago Bulls fan, okay? Like, man.
My God. Oh, hey. I'm gonna be honest. I was gonna pick the Heat regardless. I still feel like they had a little more depth than the Bulls, top to bottom. But I wasn't expecting this without Jimmy Butler. Was not expecting that.
Wait, hold on. Wait, let's keep it in context now. This is the Miami Heat we talking about. Eric Spoelstra, people have forgotten how good of a head coach he is. You can say a lot of things about South Beach and Miami, but I do know Pat Riley, Mickey Arison, Eric Spoelstra, they don't play.
No.
And they're going to do whatever it takes to get to where they were. And even without Jimmy Butler, man, I mean, it's over. Miami Heat just won the game 112-91. I think when it comes to that situation, you're going to pick the Miami Heat. Disappointed that my Chicago Bulls, they lost. But at the end of the day, man, hey, I can't blame you because, again, it is the Miami Heat, the culture, the history, man. But BRF, which player are you looking forward to, or which player or team you're looking forward to heading into the playoffs? I said Anthony Edwards. I can't wait to see what he's going to do against the Suns. What says you?
I'm going to take it a step further. I want to see what the Minnesota Timberwolves do as a whole. Because I want to see what the Minnesota Timberwolves as a whole. For me, they are, as a team, they are the X factor of the entire Western Conference playoffs. Because they are either going to lay an egg, being the one, or they're just going to continue doing what they've been doing and just surprise some people and possibly get to the Western Conference Finals. Because I feel like they are one of the most balanced teams in the league in terms of how they play offense and how they play defense. Because their defense has been like killer like all year. So I'm really anxious to see what they do as a whole, particularly him. And I don't know who decided to remind Rudy Gobert that he could play some basketball, but homeboy been playing some basketball this year. So,
and they got the best defense in the NBA, Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, and it really ain't been that close. So I'm definitely they are the team that sticks out to me as far as what I really want to see them do come playoff time. For me, it's Minnesota as a whole.
All right, a lot of people want to see Dallas versus the Clippers. No doubt about that, but I agree with you, BRF. Minnesota, that defense going up against Devin Booker and KD, especially with Devin Booker, not only as the scorer, but also as the passer and playmaker. And then with KD, that's going to be interesting to see. And with Bradley Beal. I think this is going to be great because I can't wait to see who's the better two guard between Devin Booker or Anthony Edwards?
I think it's the best matchup of the whole first round.
Oh yeah, I mean, you ain't lying there. But let's move into some NBA MVP. BRF, I'm gonna let you go first.
All right, boss.
Who do you have winning the MVP?
Who do I have? Who do I have
Yes.
for MVP this year? I'm gonna be honest. I think we've been waiting for the last couple of years for this. I think it's about time for Luka to go ahead and get this. I think it's about time for Luka Doncic to go ahead and get this. I think the way he's and the thing is, even with a guy the caliber of Kyrie Irving on his team, the way he's still able to orchestrate that offense and just being the elite offensive player he is, not just scoring, but his ability to play make and his ability to set up for his teammates. I mean, I think this is finally Luka Doncic's year to win the NBA Most Valuable Player award. I would give it to him.
Champ.
I'm gonna back up BRF Sports. Give it to the scoring champion. Give it to Luka. Spectacular offensive onslaught. Spectacular. If you could put James Harden and Larry Bird together as one, that's who he would be.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
If you could put James Harden, the Rockets version of James Harden, and Larry Bird, I think 86, together and put them in one offensive player, that would be Luka. And man, I'm going to tell you something. For him to be in, people can talk about how great a shape that he's in or is not. But the thing is, for him not to be that monster, that menacing type of player, as far as size-wise that you want to see, and for him to be that skilled, I mean, you just don't. Now, I agree he could be a little bit better defensively, but hey, I'll take the highest of the highs with the lowest of the lows. But Luka, man, he is something special, man, and he's going to be something special for years to come, man. I mean, one of the youngest players to win a scoring title. I mean, and he's not done yet. He's not done.
He's only 25.
He's only 25, winning the scoring title. So, I mean, I got to give it to Luka, man. I understand that Jokic is, an offensive onslaught, and when he gets a triple-double, his teams win. And he's not, with Jokic, he's not stat padded when he's getting these triple-doubles either. He's not going for it on purpose. This is just how it's happening. And I understand with that, but man, Luka, Luka is something special, man. If you could put James Harden and Larry Bird together into one offensive onslaught, that would be it. Luka would be it, man. I'm taking Luka, man. That guy is something special, man.
Harrison?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just doing my bracket right now, trying to figure out who's gonna win it all this year. Yeah, what Champ says, I agree. So I'm going with Luka.
I'm gonna go with Nikola Jokic, the Joker. Listen, no disrespect to Luka. I think Luka has been great, but I think a lot of it with Jokic, I think it had to do with how he was disrespected last season, particularly from Kendrick Perkins. Jokic, 26, 12, and 9. Okay, he's not leading the NBA in scoring. He's in the top 2, top 3 in rebounding. He's third in assists behind Halliburton and I think Luka. But when I look at just Jokic, the way he plays within his pace, he's always up there in the advanced numbers. And what he's been doing, Nikola Jokic, in my opinion, might be the most disrespected superstar in NBA history. This guy was drafted in the second round during a Taco Bell commercial. People just don't like Jokic because he doesn't have hops. He doesn't have athleticism. Okay, he plays in Denver. There are games, they're late at night. It's not a big market like Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or any place like that. But the man, and he's slow, but he plays within his pace. Passing. I mean, I haven't seen a big man with that type of passing ability since Arvydas Sabonis, going back to his days with the Portland Trailblazers. But Jokic can make any type of pass in the post, in transition, doesn't matter. The way you're going to have to stop the Denver Nuggets is you take away his passing and his playmaking. Without it, how are the players on the Denver Nuggets going to get their buckets? And when I look at what Jokic has meant to this team, and he's played 79 games, you know, the best ability is availability, and what he's been doing, not only with the counting numbers, but with the advanced numbers and just what he does consistently. Would I be mad if Luka win it? No, because I think people would love to see Luka Doncic win the MVP because Luka does have swag. Luka does have a personality. He's more Larry Bird than James Harden, in my opinion, because of the size. Just how great he is as a passer, as a playmaker, as a scorer. Got that swag, got that dog in him, got personality, and I can't wait to see that matchup between him and the Clippers. But I think of Jokic, man. He's been disrespected all along. I've won back-to-back MVPs. You could have made an argument he should have won the MVP last season, although I didn't really have much of a problem with Joel Embiid because later down the stretch, Joel Embiid was putting up numbers. When you look at Nikola Jokic, I think he's going to win it. I don't think any of us would have a problem with it. I would love to see Luka win it. Another player that we're also kind of forgetting is SGA from the Oklahoma City Thunder. He deserves consideration, but I don't see him winning it because of look at the team. You look at the head coach, Mark Donholt, who I believe should win without a doubt Coach of the Year, although you can make other arguments for other players, but I believe he's going to win it. But I got Jokic because I think the disrespect that he took last year, I think it's going to factor considering how well and consistent he's been playing. And I think, man, he's still consistent, still putting up the production, still putting up the numbers. I'm going to go with Jokic on this one.
Hey, PSP, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Isn't it fair to say, this is just a sentiment of mine. I could be wrong. Feel free. Isn't it safe to say that Jokic is disrespected because he's a European player? Because the thing is, we've seen superstars in Denver. Denver's a small market, but we've seen superstars. We saw Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. We saw Dikembe Mutombo excel in that market. We saw Carmelo Anthony. We saw Chauncey Billups. We saw a multitude of guys excel in that market. Do you think being a European player has anything to do with that?
I think so. I also think the fact that unlike most superstars, he doesn't have a social media. You know, I think what is it about Jokic you don't like? Because he's a European, because he's not known for athleticism or hops? Is it because the media loves him because of the advanced numbers, the PER, everything else that he represents? I mean, if you actually look at the numbers this season for the ratings for women's college basketball and men's college basketball, I think they're even more than the NBA Finals last year.
Mm-hmm.
That should tell you something.
Yeah.
But but when Jokic, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer easily.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have him as the best basketball player in the NBA. I think people just knock on him because social media, defense, although he has played better defense compared to what he previously did last season. He's definitely in better condition than what he was early in his career. I think during the time of the lockout, you saw some pictures of Jokic looking more in better shape and better condition.
Yeah.
I just think it's a culmination of things. That's what I look at. Yes, I do think the European factor, that definitely plays a factor, but I also think the market, I also think the style of basketball that he plays as well and why they use that. And I think I just love Jokic because he puts up these types of numbers for a guy his size. And Jokic, if he wins another championship with another MVP and finals MVP, we're going to have a discussion. Is he a top 5 center of all time?
I would put him there already.
You would put him over Moses.
For me, it's the overall. For me, it's the overall statistics on top of the accolades. Particularly for me, it's particularly be getting 3 MVPs from a center position, which is pretty unheard of, and then the championships along with it. I would put him up there if he was to win a championship and was to get another league MVP. I'd put him up there because and I know you got to. Because like you have Shaq, you have Kareem, you have Hakeem, you have Wilt, who just for me, Wilt still is just people talk about okay, he played and he. This is why I don't like the whole disrespect in the era argument because you still have to respect and measure what he did for his time and how he dominated. Jokic for me, so Wilt for me is in my top 5, and if Jokic was to win another championship and another league MVP, he goes right in for me. He goes right in.
So BRF, just to be clear, your top 5 centers of all time. I know you got Kareem, you got Shaq. Who else do you have? Bill Russell. You got Hakeem in there.
I don't. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I do not have Bill Russell in my top 5.
Wow.
I don't have Bill Russell in my top 5, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, look at the championships he won." It's totality for me. He has the 11 championships, but for me, it's the stats and the overall just level of play. Even though he was good for his time, I look at a guy like Hakeem Olajuwon, who is arguably you can make a case he's arguably the greatest two-way player in the history of the sport with his offense and his defense. So yes. I definitely have Hakeem up there, and I understand Bill was the championship guy of his era. I'm taking Wilt. Just overall statistically, the domination. Yeah, he doesn't have the championships, but I'm just looking at the overall totality.
So I don't blame you, BRF.
Yeah, so
pick Hakeem over Bill because when I look at Hakeem, even though Kareem has the most unstoppable move, but the most unbelievable is the Dream Shake. For a guy of Hakeem's size, remember he's from Nigeria,
right?
That soccer background. He has tremendous footwork, nice soft touch, with the fadeaway shot. Also can give you great defense as well. One of 3 players to win MVP and Defensive Player that year. The other 2 men are Michael Jordan and Giannis Antetokounmpo. He also won MVP, Defensive Player, NBA Championship, and Finals MVP in the same year as well. So you can't go wrong with Hakeem. He's actually one of my favorite players to watch besides Allen Iverson.
Yeah, if I had to go my top 5 centers right now, Kareem is my 1. For me, it's a toss-up between Shaq and Hakeem being 2 for 3. I'm gonna lean ever so slightly because of how dominant he was. I'm gonna lean Shaq, then Hakeem, then Wilt, and for now I do have Bill, but Jokic is like he's starting to knock on the door a little bit, particularly if he gets a cup like that MVP and another championship. He's starting to knock on the door a little bit, and his offensive game is just something you just don't see that from a center. His ability to score, his ability to rebound, still, basically him being a point center is basically what he is, just being able to oversee the floor from that position. So he is coming. He's knocking at the door. He's really knocking at the door.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some NFL. Let's get into some NFL right here. We got the draft coming up on Thursday. A lot of big stuff to talk about. Before we get into it, I want to read the comment here from Jay Bailey, from Stay Tuned Live. What up, fellas? Appreciate you, Jay Bailey. Let's talk about the NFL draft. We all know Caleb Williams is going to be the consensus number 1 overall pick. Which team are you looking forward to with the draft as far as with draft picks or trades? Harrison, are you still there?
Oh yes, I'm still finishing my bracket. I'm sorry. I've just been so focusing on trying to. I'll stuck between
Um,
the
you
Clippers
got
and the Mavericks.
we got the draft coming up real quick, man. Which team are you looking forward to as far as with a draft pick or trading up in the draft?
Oh man, can I just say my team?
Go ahead.
Listen, I know we trade Brian Burns away, our top 10 defensive end, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm just excited to draft correct because we haven't been draft correctly for God knows how long. Good, so we finally got a new general manager. We got a new coach, Dave Canales, which I think Dave Canales has been doing a really good job with us this offseason. And I want to explain some players that I want in the draft. If you don't mind, PSP.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I want the guy from NC State. I want the linebacker, Peyton Wilson. I want Peyton Wilson from NC State. This dude is a dog. I've seen him play. He has the speed. He's got his agility. He can read quarterbacks like a book. People were comparing him to Luke Kuechly. I swear to God, people were comparing this man to Luke Kuechly. I think this dude's could be a dog. And also, one person that I want, Champ. Who's that? Who's your guy? The wide receiver from Georgia.
Lad McConkey.
Yeah, he
the wide receiver. I want, dude.
Get you.
I want him. I want that guy so bad, bro. That dude can get some separation, right? If I'm not mistaken, Champ.
Man, Lad McConkey was a huge part.
Lad McConkey is an animal.
Yes, he was a huge part. People talk about Brock Bowers, but hey, Lad McConkey was no joke, man. I mean, the way he was able to get separation, the way his route running is, and he only I think he under 6 feet, isn't it, Frank?
I think it's like 5'11".
He's 5'11". Yeah, that sounds about right.
He ain't that big. But he only like 185 soaking wet, and he's that's one of the best route runners.
Kind of like Hunter Renfrow.
Yes, that's one of the best route runners I've seen come through there as far as the wide receiver is concerned.
I just think that because right now we don't have a first overall pick, but we have 2 high seconds. That's like basically 2 first rounders on the second day, my opinion. But I think if we cook in this second round, I feel like could be a good start in the new era, in the Dave Canales era. But that's all I'm going to say. I'm just excited. New era, new dawn, new day. And I just feel like could be a good spot in the right direction for Dave Canales and Dan Morgan.
All right. I'm going to let Champ go first, but I kind of know what Champ's kind of thinking right now. He wants to get that pass rusher from Bama. What's his name again, Champ?
Dallas Turner.
Yes. And Champ will be the first to tell you he wasn't sold on Montez Sweat. I was trying to tell him. No. Go watch this dude. This dude could bull rush and get after the quarterback. And he was trying to tell me he wanted Chase Young. Well, I'm sorry, Champ. I had to mention it because I knew you wanted to get a pass rusher. Hey, you finally got a quarterback. You wanted Russell Wilson, although it wouldn't be mad at. Although you would have loved to have him at the Waffle House for some chicken and waffles, but you end up getting Kirk Cousins. You paid him a ton of money. You got an embarrassment of riches at the offensive side. You got to get yourself a defensive player. And by the way, you had a really good defense last year. You have a good enough chance to win the division. So I'm going to let you go.
All right, Champ, do us proud. This our team, man. You got to come
outside.
Come strong with it.
I'm just being real, just being honest. Outside of Atlanta, I know we need a pass rusher, but if you really look at it, that team is going to be really dictating on that offensive side of the ball. And we've already proven, even without a spectacular pass rusher, we can be a top defense. The team I'm looking forward to, who I have been getting killed all week long about this. Team I'm looking forward to is to see what they're going to do in the draft is Bills Mafia.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
you've been getting killed on social media.
Yeah, but I want to see what they're going to do about replacing Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. I want to see what they're going to do about getting those two players replaced and how they're going to address the skill position players. Now, if you really look at the running back position, you already have James Cook, who has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt he can carry that pigskin. But the thing
where did he go to school?
UGA. Two-time national champions, by the way, back to back. But we won't go there. But the thing is, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they replace him. I would love to see the Buffalo Bills get Brian Thomas from LSU. I would love to see them get Brian Thomas from LSU. And wouldn't it be ironic for another LSU player to replace Stephon Diggs, considering what happened in Minnesota when he got replaced by Justin Jefferson?
Man.
So wouldn't it be quite ironic for another LSU player to go to Buffalo and surpass him, much like Jefferson did in Minnesota? But the thing is, I want to see what Buffalo's going to do. I'm very excited to see what they're going to do because they have made some strides from, I got some more information. Von Miller did rearrange his contract so they could be able to make some move. But I want to see what they're going to do on the offensive side of that ball because I'm tired of them having Josh Allen being end-all be-all. I just hate seeing that. And everybody loves to see their quarterback run. We all love to see Lamar Jackson. We all love to see all of that. We all love to see the highlight runs. We all love it. But the reality of the situation is I cringe when I see those runs because the thing is, I don't know when that one big hit is going to come where they put them on the ground for real. When they put them on the ground for good. And with Josh Allen being the main, his usage rate for a quarterback was around 85, 90%.
Jesus.
So that is horrible. So the thing is, start running that ball more with James Cook. Hey, you get a running back from UGA, you at least going to get 4 to 5 good years out of him, at least. But the thing is, you need some skill position players in order to replace Stephon Diggs at this point. And we do not, Buffalo, Bills Mafia, you do not need, hear me when I say this, you do not need Josh Allen in that offense to keep being end-all be-all because eventually your number's going to get called. And I don't want to see that happen to one of the best storied franchises and one of the best fan bases you're ever going to see in arguably the history of the NFL. But outside of Atlanta, getting Dallas Turner, I would love to see what the Buffalo Bills are going to do. I'm hoping that they get Josh Allen some weapons during this offseason as far as in that draft.
Well, they better because, again, now with Stephon Diggs out of the equation, and now that they moved on from Gabe Davis, we saw how Josh Allen was his first 2 years in the NFL without Stephon Diggs. But I think Josh Allen will be okay as long as you give him something to work with. And speaking to your point, Champ, we keep talking about Alabama with running backs. UGA, you had Todd Gurley, you had Sony Michel, James Cook, Nick Chubb. I mean, Georgia, don't sleep on their running backs now.
Hey, Rodney Hampton, the great Terrell Davis. I mean, you named, Herschel Walker.
Garrison Hurst,
you name them. I mean, and those are just the big guys. I mean, I cannot tell you Orlando Scary, who had a couple of good seasons out there in Denver.
No Sean Marino.
Yes, no Sean Marino.
Robert Edwards.
Yes, Robert Edwards was no joke.
He was on the track to become a big time player in the NFL before he got hurt.
Yes, he was. But the thing is, don't forget about Buffalo Bills Mafia. Please give Josh Allen the help that he deserves. He deserves to have a run, much like Jim Kelly did back in the 90s. And not only to have a run, but to win. Josh Allen deserves it more than anybody. So get him what he needs.
BRF?
Well, Champ didn't go the Homer route, And honestly, there's not a other. I did make a case for the Washington Commanders in one of the pods, but I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. I'm intrigued by my boys to see what they're gonna do. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm very intrigued to see what the Falcons are gonna do because I thought the 8th pick was just a shoe in. It was gonna be a pass rusher, but then you get Kirk Cousins in the mix at the quarterback. Now it's like, do we draft Malik Neighbors? Do we draft Rome Odunze from Washington? I mean,
How much more wide receivers do y'all need? How much more weapons do y'all need?
Hear me out though. The reason why I say that is because now you have a quarterback that can actually get the ball out of his hands and is very efficient getting the ball to his receivers. And it's like, do you go ahead and just get all you can, get the possible highest ceiling you can out of the offense by drafting one of those two big time wide receivers? I mean, the possibility is there getting a Kirk Cousins. Me personally, I would love to see them just play it safe. You need a pass rusher. You get Dallas Turner, or you draft Laiatu Latu from UCLA. You draft one of those two boys. You get them in there. I think those two have the immediate, as far as defense, as far as pass rusher go, I think they're the two guys that can come in and produce right off the bat. So I'm looking at Atlanta drafting one of. I just feel like Atlanta, maybe they don't win the division with a good draft, but they solidify being the favorites in the NFC South with a good draft. So I think this is really important for them to be able to get the right pieces, but just being able to develop them and get them from the draft to the field, being able to produce. So I'm definitely interested to see how they kind of retool their depth, being able to, kind of build up what they did from last year from defense. Because I mean, yeah, late in the year they started to struggle a little bit, but at one point that you could make the case the Falcons was a top 10 defense last year. You could really make the case, and they were doing this. Basically like, I don't want to say, smoke and mirrors pass rushing, because one of the more underrated things about the Falcons, they had 42 sacks last year, which is a decent. Which for the Atlanta Falcons, you say 42 sacks as a team defensively with the Falcons, you're like, damn. Okay, what were y'all drinking this year?
RPM.
Oh my! They were doing something. They were doing something, because I enjoyed watching them rush the passer this past year. So I'm intrigued to see what they do with that 8th pick. And they hold cards, because there are going to be some teams that could be knocking on the door. The JJ McCarthy rumbles are real. Do the Falcons kind of gauge
draft
that?
stock is like trending.
That's what I'm saying.
JJ McCarthy's been going crazy. Just the Broncos, the Vikings, who else?
Do the Falcons gauge a lot of these teams' interest in a JJ McCarthy with that 8th pick? And do they look at it and do they go, do we let the 8th pick go for the house and then just retool and then do what we need to do to build that defense, possibly get a late steal offensive weapon too up in there? I mean, Falcons hold a lot of cards with that 8th overall pick.
I mean, you guys had the best offseason.
And piggybacking on PSP, I know you said that how many wide receivers do you need? Hey, if you look back on the organization, the Falcons organization, you look at some of the receiver cores we had, they're fat out monstrous. Go back to Eric Metcalf and Michael Hayes. That's one of the more underrated, receiver core. Andre Rison and Michael Hayes. Remember Bad Moon Rison and Michael Hayes, BRF?
Absolutely.
We was running a run and shoot offense back then.
Absolutely.
Roddy White, Michael Douglas. I mean, not to mention
Julio Jones.
Not to mention one of the best receiver cores we probably ever had. Remember, we had Tony Gonzalez, Roddy White, Julio Jones, and then we traded for Mohamed Sanu the very next year. So that was a very explosive team.
Man, yeah, I mean, but Champ, I mean, you ain't lying though. That is like, that is probably one of the more surprising things when you look at the history of the Atlanta Falcons franchise is
wide receiver.
the wide receivers. And
Yeah.
the wide receivers they've done, even though they haven't drafted like all I'll say outside of Roddy and Julio, like it hasn't been like, potential borderline Hall of Fame talent, but they've had really, really, really good wide receivers come through Atlanta.
Mhm.
So even though people are going to be like, why would you draft another wide receiver? I look at it from the standpoint of, you got a guy like Kirk Cousins. The Falcons might just want to maximize the ceiling and full potential of that offense and get one of those boys. So that's why I say you can't rule out drafting a wide receiver. But me personally, I wouldn't do it just from the standpoint wide receivers really deep this year.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with two teams that are in the same division in the NFC East, the Washington Commanders. Now, it's clear they're going to draft a quarterback with the number 2 pick. I don't expect them to trade that number 2 pick. They have to draft a quarterback because you just traded away Sam Howell to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for a 6th-round pick. Although I would love to see them draft offensive linemen, because no matter what quarterback you have, in the words of my man, undisputed world champ, quarterback can't throw behind his back. Quarterback can't throw behind his back. So, some noise in the background. My fault.
Oh no, that's my phone. No, that's my phone. That's my good. You go ahead, bro.
No, it's all good. Quarterback can't throw behind his back, in the words of undisputed world champ. And you look at Sam Howell last year; he was under a lot of pressure, and that offensive line, you ain't getting any better. So with the number 2 overall pick, the question is, who should they draft? I believe they're going to draft Jaden Daniels because the upside of the potential. But at the same time, I'm concerned about his size. If I had concerns about Sam Howell at quarterback, what makes you think with Jaden Daniels, who's listed at 6'4", 210, tall but lanky quarterback? I would rather prefer they get Drake May, because I just like his game. I think it's more transferable to the NFL level. And for those who want to look at Drake May and look at his numbers last season compared to the year before, do some research. The team was decimated last year. He didn't have enough talent last year than the year before. Kind of like with Sam Howell, his final year at UNC compared to his first 2 years in the NFL. So that has to play a factor. And the other team is the Dallas Cowboys, because you're gonna have to do something. CeeDee Lamb is reporting he has not showed up to OTAs. Dak Prescott is going through some type of legal situation. We'll wait and see how that goes. But he's entering free agency heading into 2025. And there's a lot of things that you have to look at the Dallas Cowboys. They have to look at linebackers. They have to look at running back, because Tony Pollard is gone now. I think they should look at Blake Corum, the running back from Michigan, who can move the chains, who can give you some yards. He's not the most explosive or athletic running back, but he's sturdy. He's solid enough, and I think that's something that the Cowboys need. The Cowboys, I see them finishing 2nd in the division. The Eagles should win the division this year because of the moves they made in the offseason. And look, just by history, no team in that division going back to the early 2000s has won in back-to-back years. And I got my man Jay Will from the Stay Tuned Live podcast. What up, man? But I got Dallas and Washington, because Washington, although I wish they would have drafted off O-line and drafted defensive players, and they need to get a tight end, because last year I wish they would have drafted champ and BRF Darnell Washington, but it seemed like to me they didn't want to touch him because of the knee injury. And we got Grant in the building. What's up, Grant?
Y'all, salute. How y'all doing? Sorry I'm late. Life is hectic, but we're here, so everything's good.
It's good, man. We're actually talking about the NFL draft. Which team you looking forward to as far as with the draft in terms of draft picks or trades or whatever?
Honestly, the team that I think I'm really looking the most forward to is I think LA. Because you have the reason why I say that is because you have to look at it as essentially
the Chargers
a lot of the Chargers. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
the Chargers have basically given up all of their assets, and now Justin Herbert essentially has nothing. And I think now I'm interested to see where they go in the draft, especially when you look at who they're going to like, who they need. I think they need a receiver, especially because Justin Herbert's weapons as of right now are god awful. And I don't know if they need to basically build that offense back up for him. And I know that's probably just going to be very hard with this draft, but I'm interested to just see where they go, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because I think Justin Herbert just needs new weapons. Because the look at that offense now, like I was looking at it, that roster today, it's bad. Like it's bad. And that's what scares me. And I think if they don't really help, I don't know how much you can help Justin Herbert with what you're going to have in the draft. And I think if they don't draft the right way, Justin Herbert's going to want to trade and want to leave. And at that point, I'm not going to blame him. So I'm more interested to see how they are able to boost up that offense, especially because I think they need to do it. Like I said, they need to do it for Justin Herbert. If they don't do it now, he's going to request a trade and then it's going to be too late. So I hope the Chargers really do something for him.
Hey, Grant, they better draft Brock Bowers or Malik Neighbors because the Cardinals, they have the 4th overall pick. And don't be surprised for a fact they get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I have them in my mock draft taking Marvin Harrison because
shout out Casual.
I think the first 3 picks are going to be straight quarterbacks. I think it's Caleb Williams, Drake May, JD. And then that 4th pick for me, I think you go Marvin Harrison. Or I could see a situation where New England takes Marvin Harrison, and then that 4th pick is still open, and then that goes for then Jane Daniels goes as
Can you imagine they get Marvin Harrison, especially with the reports about AJ Brown to possibly New England?
Yeah, that's kind of like I wasn't gonna say something about that, but since you brought it up, that whole thing, if that's true, that's gonna just be like a knife in the gut for Philly fans. Because I just feel like that whole situation just erupted because A.J. Brown was toxic. And my fear is if you send him to New England, New England's in basically a process of rebuilding. They're trying to basically start the team over after the departure of Belichick. And why would you want to bring somebody in there who's caused all these problems in Philadelphia into your team? That's not like the best idea. That's like a cancer waiting to happen. I wouldn't do it. Me personally, I wouldn't do it. I don't, unless I'm 100% confident that this dude is going to like be mature and get his stuff together. Like I wouldn't want him anywhere near my team, especially if we're trying to get ourselves back onto the rebuild. Like that's not worth the risk for me. Like I just don't understand why you would want to take him after hearing everything that he did in Philadelphia. Like that just seems like the most negative move you could do.
And not only that, though, the quarterback situation, they just traded Mac Jones. He's now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So who they have? Bailey Zappi or Zappi?
Bailey Zappi.
Bailey Zappi. But when I look at New England, I mean, if you can do, I like what I'm seeing with OJ Mayo. I think he'll do a good enough job with this team. I think they should draft Drake May if he is available because, again, as much as I don't like overrating the quarterback position, you're not going to go anywhere without a quarterback. I mean, New England, Mac Jones may not be the best quarterback in the world, but I felt like the Patriots didn't put him in a position to succeed. Because think about it. The first year he did well. They made the playoffs. He made the Pro Bowl. The following year, you put Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, of all people, calling offensive plays. I mean, that's just catastrophe. But again, that's on Belichick because Belichick, ever since Brady's departure, he just hasn't been the same. I mean, he's still a great coach. You can't take anything away from him. But in terms of the moves that he made, and it's interesting to see because without Belichick, I don't see him getting another job anytime soon. Don't be surprised if he's going to get a head coaching job in 2025. I think he's going to sit this one out for 2024, and then eventually when someone calls him, he's going to get an opportunity. He's not. Dallas Cowboys ain't gonna call him because
I saw an article. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, go ahead, Grant. I'll let you
I
go.
saw an article, and I thought this would be funny. There was a report that came out from somebody in England that apparently Atlanta, your Atlanta Falcons, were going to start the process of interviewing Bill Belichick, and apparently, and I don't know if this is true or not, Robert Kraft strongly suggested against it because he didn't think that. He kind of just gave a negative. It's like basically when you're asking for a reference and someone gives you a negative response. Now, granted, I do not know if this is true, but it would be shocking if that's. But if that is the case, that is genuinely shocking, considering I thought the relationship that Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft had was somewhat solid. If that report is true, but for Belichick, I think the problem was when Brady left New England. He put so much behind Mac Jones in this experiment. He refused to change it because he was so desperate to find that next player that could be the next Tom Brady. And he spent all that time with Mac Jones. It completely collapsed. And unfortunately, he had to leave. And it was just Belichick had a situation where he cannot run a team as a coach. He has to run everything in the system. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the problem with why a lot of teams didn't really want that, because I think if you're gonna not hire him as a coach, he's gonna be in charge of everything, especially draft picks, especially trade, everything of that matter. And I feel like I'm not gonna be surprised if Bill gets a job, because I think in a few years he's probably gonna get a job somewhere soon. I don't think this is it. Because I wouldn't be surprised if I see another team pick him up in the next year or so. But I think at that point, I think a lot of people are just worried about him putting that entire role of just being the supreme overlord of your team, and if that makes sense, onto him. Because I think a lot of football teams aren't willing to put that much responsibility on a guy. Even though you can look at the resume and say, yeah, he's done all this stuff, I just think there's a lot of teams that aren't going to go down that route. That's just the thing with me. Now, granted, with the article, I don't know if it's true. I have to go back and double check and do my research on it. But it would be fun. It's weird to see that, considering, again, the relationship that Kraft and Belichick had that we assumed was solid. It would be just a whole very strange situation. Just seeing how that would have panned out. But when
you think about it, a lot of those players, if it wasn't for Tom Brady, they would have been bust. If you really think about it, these guys, a lot of the guys that Bill Belichick drafted, they were not the most sought after guys. Remember, he had a bad habit. Coach Belichick, tremendous respect for the GOAT, tremendous respect. He's on Mount Rushmore in the NFL. But he had a chance to get a lot of great players and passed up on him. Can you imagine Clay Matthews III in that defense?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine that? Refusing to play players, refusing to pay a guy like Lawyer Malloy. Can you imagine Lawyer Malloy and Rodney Harrison in that secondary?
It would have been
terrible. It would have been deadly. So the thing is, it's okay. And I think another thing that's going against the great Coach Belichick is the fact you have to evolve. Football is evolving from college to high school to middle school. Even the Pop Warner players, even the Pop Warner coaches got to change the way they coach. The Patriot way is not going to work the way it would have 10 years ago. This is the age, and I'm not knocking. Before I say this, I'm not knocking these young men. I applaud them. This is a new age. This is the age of branding. This is the new age of getting your money in many ways, many times over. You could be on $1 million contract and be making $50 million in endorsement. Shout out to every last one of these players. But as a coach, you have to know how to manage personality. And that's what he lacks at this point. I believe that when it comes to the two Bills, Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells, Bill Parcells did a hell of a job at being a people person as far as his players were concerned, because it had to take everything in your doggone wheel in order to deal with Lawrence Taylor, in order to deal with Joe Morris, in order to deal with a lot of those players that you dealt with. And remember, at one point, I don't know if y'all remember it or not, remember him and Terry Glenn was going at it, and he got so mad at Terry Glenn, he started calling Terry Glenn she. So so you have to be able to manage personality and manage these players. It can't be hitting gems all over the place just because hey, I took a chance on this guy, he's gonna be loyal. You got to get great players and put them in position like the great Bill Parcells would have done. You have to put them in their position. This is a whole new era, and much like, and it's yet to be seen in the NBA, because I have to compare these two guys. It's kind of like Tim Duncan leaving the San Antonio Spurs. A big piece of that culture left with him. You have to completely rebuild. I just think that San Antonio, in their case, they lucked out with a player that was similar to him in a Victor Wembanyama. But, unfortunately for Coach Belichick, he hasn't looked out with a player like that as of yet. And my thing is, you have to be willing to pay these players. Ain't nobody taking a pay cut no more. You had Tom Brady, so people had a reason to come and take a pay cut. You don't have that anymore, so you have to put players in position in order to gauge that franchise. So if I had any advice to give to Coach Belichick, is to learn how to manage personalities. This is not the Patriots anymore. You have to change.
Right. And like I said before, Champ, not just with coaches in the NFL and football, but also in sports in general. You can't do things you did in the past and think you can do it in today's game.
No.
And look, when I heard reports about Belichick possibly going to the Commanders, I did not buy it. And the reason why I did not want that to happen is because, look, no disrespect to Coach Belichick, he's forgotten about football than the rest of us will ever know. But I compared it to Phil Jackson going to the New York Knicks. Great head coach, Super Bowls, championships, but to implement the Patriots way, that's kind of like with Phil Jackson with the New York Knicks implementing the triangle offense, that old, outdated philosophy that's just not conducive and is just not supportive for today's players and today's style. So you're going to have to get ahead with the times. And also, Champ, we also got to put Sean Payton's ass on the hot seat. Because we got to put Sean Payton's ass on the hot seat because you saw the type of, and we're going to get into Russell Wilson in just a second, right after this. You saw how he treated Russell Wilson, right? You saw.
Yeah. And he wouldn't have dared done that with Drew Brees.
No, he would not have, because as a Saints fan, I can confirm this. He would never, ever have had this same relationship with Drew Brees. If he did this to Drew Brees, I bet you $1 million Drew Brees would be gone. Like, he would not, and it wouldn't because they would have cut him. He would have left. The only reason why he treated Russ like this, and what burns me up about it the most, and I'm saying this, do not get me wrong, I'm grateful for Sean Payton. He got my team a Super Bowl that I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. I'm forever grateful for that. But when we put that aside, the fact that this man sat there, talked all that trash about that whole organization, said I could do a better job, gets hired, you get Russ in, and you tell everybody, this is the guy that's going to get this team around. And then it doesn't work out after halfway through that second season. And what do? You bench him, and then you're going to release him? What? Release him after only actually not even 2, 1.5 seasons. For what?
Which, by the way, you were close enough to competing in the playoffs.
Well.
Yeah, and I'm not even trying to justify the fact that he was playing well. But when you give him a team that barely wasn't going to give Russ any help at all, and don't get me wrong, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, great players.
Whoa. First of all, hi, nice to meet you, dude. But whoa, dude, the Broncos were a top 10 offensive line.
I'm not okay, yeah. But my point is, if we're gonna sit here and act like Russ wasn't getting hoed by Denver and then he just gets released, I said this on your show. I'm glad he was out of Denver. Because all Denver did was just beat him up and not give him anything to make it work outside of just the small little pieces that he had. So essentially, if Sean doesn't get his act together after this season and the Broncos don't do something, he got to go. Like, I don't know how much longer you're going to be able to sit there and make excuses for Sean Payton.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't see him really doing anything.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim. My fault.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, I don't really see Sean Payton doing a lot in that division. You're not going to outcoach.
You're probably going to finish last place in that.
You're not going to outcoach.
Yeah.
Or third.
You're not going to outcoach. Yeah. You're not going to outcoach Andy Reid. You damn sure ain't going to outcoach Jim Harbaugh. And you might not outcoach Antonio Pierce, depending on what quarterback he did.
I like the Vegas Raiders outlook for the future a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think my division.
The thing is, you got a hell of a lot to compete with. And you have to understand this. That offense that you had in New Orleans worked because of Drew Brees. I'm not so sure it's going to work with J.J. McCarthy. I'm not so sure. Because if you really look at that, and you could attest to this, Grant, because, hey, we division rivals. Y'all ran a hell of a lot of slant routes and a lot of short routes going on. It was not a lot of going long in that offense, except with the tight end. So if you don't produce this year, you have a lot to answer for. And I don't think you're going to succeed in that division. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There's really no big difference between Mike McCarthy and Sean Payton. Both of them were merchants of two of the greatest of all time. They won titles, and one won a title in a storied franchise. The other one won in a perennial losing franchise. Even with the Dome Patrol, they could not win. And guess what? They haven't done anything since then, even with some of the great seasons that each quarterback has had. I never forget, Drew Brees had one of the damn near threw for 6,000 yards. And they still couldn't go anywhere. You left New Orleans in cap hell in order to leave and go somewhere else and when you retired. Not only that, you misused a lot of your key players in that offense as well. So what are you going to do this year in order to rectify that? And what is your relationship going to be with your next quarterback? Because you can rest assured, whatever young quarterback you draft, they watched what you did to Russ. And I'm going to just be real. Not every quarterback is mild-mannered as Russ, and it's going to be the shucks type of guy. Right. You do that to one of these young players, something is bound to happen, like what happened to Mike Singletary when he tried that with someone.
Absolutely. Let's continue on with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
He did an interview with Essence Magazine, and he talked about how he paved the way for black quarterbacks. This is a quote from Russell Wilson. For me to be able to go to back-to-back Super Bowls and win one of them, I think opened up a lot of doors. Now you see guys like Patrick Mahomes who've won it. It's really just us so far, but there's more to come. The emergence of quarterbacks like Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and C.J. Stroud, to name a few, is indicative of a new era in football and a glimpse into what the sport is trending toward. And look, Russell Wilson, you can look at his resume. His resume speaks for itself. 9-time Pro Bowler, 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl victory. Arguably, during his prime, top 5 quarterback. I think he's going to go to Canton. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, deservedly so. I do think he kind of changed the way for black quarterbacks. I also think he changed the way for miniature quarterbacks, him and Drew Brees, because, again, Russell Wilson is about 5'10", 5'11-ish. He was drafted in the 3rd round out of Wisconsin. And to have this type of career, I mean, look, people may not like about his leadership or the commercials, but he is mild-mannered, very well respected. But I do think guys who paved the way, without question, Warren Moon. Before he went to NFL, he went to the CFL. Let's not forget that and what he had to go through. Let's not forget another quarterback who played for my team, became the first African-American to win a Super Bowl. That would happen to be one Doug Williams out of Grambling State. Let's also not forget Cam Newton. Because again, and I've mentioned this, champ, and BRF, I don't know if you saw the episode. When we did the discussion about Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, who had the better career, the reason why I said Cam, not because of longevity, is because we talked about Andrew Luck under a lot of pressure. So was Cam. Because had Andrew Luck entered that season, had he entered the NFL draft, unequivocally, he would have been the number 1 overall pick because he was the best quarterback prospect since Elway. Cam was under a lot of pressure coming out of college because of the situations that he was in to play for pay early on with Florida, and for him to have this type of good career. There's also Randall Cunningham. Let's not forget Randall Cunningham. Let's also forget, even though he is controversial, Mike Vick, champ, BRF, Grant, Harrison, all of y'all, NFC South. Remember the Michael Vick experience?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
That man was a demon.
That division hated us for a good 2-3 years.
So I think he kind of paved the way for black quarterbacks, but I think there's a lot more. I think we can't ignore Warren Moon. We can't ignore Randall Cunningham. We can't ignore other black African-American quarterbacks who paved the way as well. But what are y'all thoughts? And before I let y'all speak, shout out to, again, Brendan from the block. Always a pleasure, man. Go check out his podcast, the Throwdown Podcast, the basketball podcast. Who wants to go?
I'll take this one, if you don't mind, PSP.
Go ahead.
I think when he said he paved the way, I think he has a point. I think Russ showed a lot of black quarterbacks you could do it without the flash. I think when you see a lot of black quarterbacks, the first thing you think is a lot of flash. And I think that Russ, as well as Warren Moon, I would say as well as Warren Moon, showed you that you didn't have to say much in order to win, and you don't have to be the flashiest guy in the room in order to win. I think that he did do a lot in order to show you that you don't have to do that. I mean, you can win silently. And that doesn't mean that you're necessarily bad words, and we will keep those words to a minimum. But you know what I'm talking about, PSP, as well as you do, Frank. Mm-hmm. But you can win silently, and you can win gracefully and not have a lot of noise. And I don't even think I've seen Russ celebrate not one time. I mean, I don't think I've seen him celebrate. I mean, maybe
he don't do touchdown dances. He don't do
none of them touchdown dances. You don't see a whole lot of, when he scores, he does it humbly and he does it gracefully. So if I could say anything about Russ, I would think he showed a lot of black quarterbacks and young black quarterbacks that you can do it humbly, and you don't necessarily have to be the flashiest quarterback, because outside of Warren Moon and Doug Williams, when you think about a lot of black quarterbacks, unfortunately, people think about the flash of it, and that's a reality. When you think about Michael Vick, you think about the flash. When you think about Randall Cunningham, you think about flash. When you think about Cam Newton, you think about flash. When you think about, Lamar Jackson even, you think about flash. So the thing is, I think that Russ showed you that you can win with substance, a lot of substance, and you can leave the humility in there. You don't necessarily have to be the loudest quarterback in the room. And like I said, I think the three guys that really simplified that was Doug Williams, Warren Moon, and Russ, because like I said, they won very, very gracefully. You really, up until recently, you really never heard about Russ. You really don't hear about him, outside of the locker room like that. You can hear, his teammates, have some gripes, but outside of that, you don't really hear about him too much. It's like, Russ, he's a quarterback. Okay, that's that. But outside of that, you really don't hear about him. You really don't hear about him at a lot of these social events and things of that nature, like you would hear with a lot of other quarterbacks. But the thing is, I really think that he showed you that you can win humbly and you can win gracefully without all the flash. If I could say he did one thing, that would be that. Now, granted, people climb all over him for that. But that just goes to show you how different that is viewed nowadays. Because I believe that if Warren Moon would have been in this era, how quiet he was and how down to earth that he was, he would probably be under the same scrutiny. because, like I said, Warren Moon never said 2 words other than talking to the press. And I think that's why him and Russ had the relationship they had. But yes, I think if you really look at it, yeah, he showed you he can win what you can win without the flash. Yeah, I went to 2 Super Bowls and I ain't never said a word. Yes, I have this celebrity girlfriend, but guess what? I ain't never said a word. You don't ever hear me talking in the press about a lot. So
yeah, he's not known for controversy, that's for sure.
yeah.
So Russ, I mean, as far as being a consummate professional, he's the type of person. BRF, what's your thoughts on Russ?
Well, Russ definitely he does make good points because, and there's a few guys we didn't even name, like we didn't name Donovan McNabb.
Yeah.
We didn't name Steve McNair. We didn't name Dante Culpepper, on the lesser side of it. So I mean, there's been a lot of really good, black quarterbacks to kind of like take that mantle to kind of lead the NFL into, the diversity and, just now, to where we are today, almost half of the league are, starting are black quarterbacks. So, I mean, it's just, it's definitely a great step in the right direction. And Russ is definitely a part of that. And I agree. And I'm definitely piggybacking off of what Champ said, because I definitely agree with what Champ said. He did it being the consummate professional. I mean, not showing out in front, not showing out in front of the press, not throwing your teammates under the bus, just doing everything the right way. And like Justin Fields in Pittsburgh, if you're gonna go into a situation like what Justin Fields is going to in Pittsburgh, having Russell Wilson as a teammate is like, I feel like it's the perfect scenario for him, because he's gonna see Russell Wilson with Mike Tomlin already giving him that starting job. He's gonna really see how Russell Wilson leads, how he gets out in the press, how he speaks, how he carries himself, how he's going to put the franchise first, no matter what he does on the field. He's going to find a way to shout out his teammates. He's going to find a way to shout out his coaches. He's not going to put the emphasis on himself, because he understands at the end of the day, it takes a whole team to succeed in this, like always, but it takes a full team to succeed. And Justin Fields is going to learn that quite heavily and quite well from Russell Wilson. But going back to the topic at hand, I feel like Russell Wilson has really kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say paved the way, but I'll say more he kind of revitalized what the African American quarterback in the National Football League. Because for a while it was kind of, I mean, even with Michael Vick, the year he had in Philly, I mean, you saw how Dante Culpepper started to struggle like after he left Minnesota. You saw how Donovan McNabb, even though he was okay, he wasn't what he was doing in Philly, going to Minnesota, playing with Washington, playing with Minnesota, like he wasn't that dude. So seeing a guy like Russ come in and really take the Seattle franchise by the horns and kind of put everybody on notice that this is going to be my team, I'm going to do it the right way, and just watch how I lead. He kind of revitalized that position. And now you're seeing the Jalen Hurtses of the world. You're seeing the Patrick Mahomes of the world. You're seeing the CJ Strouds. You're seeing guys like that who are coming in, succeeding, and kind of being that, that strong front for their franchise, and kind of, leading the way you need to lead. And I think Russ was a really important part, just revitalizing that position for the, just the image of the black quarterback, and just seeing, just from the leadership perspective. So I do agree with Russ that he, in that sense, if you want to say paved the way, yes, but I don't want to really take it there, because I mean, I feel like, being a black quarterback in the National Football League has been established. I mean, that foundation had already been laid. I feel like what Russ did was kind of take off from that perspective. He kind of started the new phase of what the future ultimately was going to be. And I think you're seeing that on a year-to-year basis, just how they're producing, how they're leading, and I think that is what we can definitely accredit Russ to, just really kind of putting a positive emphasis back on that. So that's where I look at it from the Russell Wilson perspective. That's where I look at it, just how he's able to lead and how he's able to just do things and just no flash, no pizzazz. I go out, I get it done, I move on to the next week. And that's what you really have to commend Russell Wilson for, just from the outside looking in, just kind of having mad respect for him, being able to do what he do and just not really, kind of stand on an even keel. So that's really my take on it. That's where I have a lot of respect for Russell Wilson.
Grant.
I think y'all kind of really summarized it up. I mean, I think BRF and Champ kind of hit all the points I was going to say. I mean, I think I think he was a big part of it. I think you can say that as much because, like Champ said, he didn't do it with all the flair, with all the this magic and pixie dust. He just did it the way he did it, and I think you can't really say a lot about the game without Russell Wilson, because I feel like what he did especially in his early years, was extremely impactful for the way he played offense, especially. So I don't think you could really say a lot about the history of it especially in the NFL without Russ. And again, like BRF said, him in Pittsburgh with Justin Fields, I think is perfect, because now it gives Justin Fields something to be able to practice with and develop under. So when this is over with, at least Justin Fields can go in and know that at least he knows what he's doing. So y'all kind of really summed it up for me, but I think you can't really say the story without Russ, but I think it's important that he's a part of it because I think he had a big impact on it.
Do you think, and I thought about this with Russ, in the past, I've questioned Russ. I've said at times, in terms of the personality, I've called them. Hey, look, I'll be the first to tell you, I did call him corny with the Subway commercials and the other things that he was doing. I think in terms of personality, minus off the field, it's kind of like Tim Duncan. Like Tim Duncan is kind of like mild-mannered, not known for saying controversial or outlandish things. That's Russ. Russ is not like a rah-rah type of leader, but Russ leads by example. Look how the way I take care of myself. Look how the way I practice. Look how the way I perform and go on and carry my business on and off the football field. Would that be a fair comparison?
Yes, that would. And if you want to know the difference, look at the difference between how the media responded to Cam Newton in 2015 when he was going to a Super Bowl versus Russ when he went to his back-to-back Super Bowl, his second Super Bowl. Look how controversial that became versus how it was just, hey, Russ is going to his second Super Bowl to face the great Tom Brady, versus how controversial Cam Newton. When Cam Newton came out with the dab and everything like that, the media didn't like that. Yeah, the media did not like that. And if you look at how they received Russ and how they did not receive Cam Newton, I'd say definitely he did a lot in order to do that, because the thing is, like I said, Russ is not going to give you a hot take. He is not going to give you no bulletin board material, and he sure as heck is not going to give you something that you can write about in the news. Now, you can speculate and do all you want to as far as the contract was concerned in Denver, asking for an office. You can critique that all you want to, and rightfully so. But off that field, you're not going to hear too much about Russ. You're not going to hear
nothing. He doesn't get into any off the field issues. I mean, he's a family man. I did kind of like remember when Future did that he dissed them on some type of lyric or a rap song, and then Russ's response was like something about being a father or whatever, and Russ should get a lot of credit about that, because again, he's like a family man. He minds his business, he takes care of his business. So I don't have a problem with Russ kind of like saying it, But I do think there are other quarterbacks that we have to factor, like Warren Moons, Doug Williams, Donovan McNabb's, other quarterbacks that also paved the way as well. Russ paved the way. I'm not saying he didn't, but I think there are other things that we got to look forward to, take into consideration, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Like you can't write the story of the I don't think you can necessarily write the story of the National Football League without Russell Wilson. I don't think you can, particularly with Seattle and those Legion and the Legion of Boom, that franchise and what they did for that stretch of time period. But I think as a whole, other quarterbacks, I feel like impacted the game more just from a standpoint of the evolution of the position. Like I said, I just think what Russ did was put the light back on them by doing it the right way. So
Right.
That's how I feel about it.
And not just that, but also short quarterbacks. Because again, when it comes to the draft, people want prototypical quarterbacks, 6'4", 6'5", 230, 240. Kyler Murray, number 1 overall pick, and Kyler Murray is listed at 5'10", but he's really more 5'9", 5'8". Another quarterback, Drew Brees. Y'all, Grant, NFC South, New Orleans Saints, BRF champ. You told me, even though Drew Brees is listed at 6 feet tall, he 5'11".
Yeah, at best. I mean, looking at him in the Georgia, when he was playing in the Georgia Dome, it was like, oh, that's Drew Brees. I'm looking like it can't be.
Yeah, see, it's like I went to the Superdome when I was little. It was like 11 or 12 to see him play. And I thought I was about to see this dude that was super tall, but I get over there where we're sitting like right on the 50-yard line, like 3 rows back, and he comes onto the field. I look at my dad and I go, Dad, is it just me or did Drew Brees shrink? And he just starts dying because he doesn't look like it. Like if you look at him from an angle, he looks shorter than what it seems. Because yeah, like y'all said, they list him as 6 foot, but he's 5'11" essentially.
Yeah.
All right, folks, let's talk about these last 2 subjects and we're going to wrap up this show. Favorite Michael Jackson song. I was listening to Billie Jean, Bad, Beat It, Thriller, I Want to Rock With You, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Want to Be Starting Something, You Rock My World, Remember the Time. Even with the Jackson 5. What is your favorite Michael Jackson song?
Jesus, I'll take this one. Jesus, PSP, what are you doing? My God.
Hey man, entertainment content.
You ain't, bro. I mean, you trying to ask somebody what's your favorite song of the GOAT. Like, my God. Because you just make there's so many. There's so many. I mean, I don't if there's one that I would have to single out that is like, okay, if I just had to have one, like if we go back in the days with like the burning CDs and all that other stuff, if there was just one, like I just had to have on like the majority of like my R&B pop playlist, if there's one Michael Jackson song that I can't go a pop CD and not put on there. If I had to single out one, it would probably be Billie Jean. If I had to single out one, it would probably be Billie Jean. Just the tempo. Just, I mean, like Michael Jackson is one of those, like his legacy will never ever 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 die. No matter how much time passes on, his legacy will live on forever. For me, as far as musically, he's the GOAT entertainer. Nobody comes close. I see all these TikTok videos where these crazy ass people are talking about Taylor Swift is entering Michael Jackson's popularity. And I just want to slap each and every one of them who say Taylor Swift is entering Michael Jackson popularity. They are insane and they all need to be slapped. thoroughly. Taylor Swift would probably tell you, ain't no way in hell she's entering Michael Jackson territory in terms of popularity. There's just no. There's no. I had to get that off my chest because that is one of the most laughable takes. Like in my entirety of TikTok, which is really since about 2020, that is the funniest take I have ever heard in my life since I've done TikTok. Is Taylor Swift is entering Michael Jackson popularity territory. I'm like, y'all must be joking. There's no way. No way.
What about Chris Brown?
If there's one,
you had to throw in Chris Brown. You had to get
I
on.
got to ask.
That's
Because
disgusting.
of hot take Kenny.
No, because the difference is Michael Jackson concerts. Look up those old videos of his concerts. There are people passing out,
crying.
His popularity was so insane. This story, and I will always remember this. He had to literally buy out in an entire grocery store and hire actors to act like shoppers so he could have an experience to feel like what it was to be normal, because he couldn't do that, because if he did, that whole place would get swarmed by hundreds of people in a span of 5 minutes. Like, popularity wise, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder, BRF, but I'll just say this: thank you for bringing up that Taylor Swift thing. Do not get me wrong, Taylor Swift, I have nothing against Taylor Swift, artist.
Exactly.
What she's done in her career, unbelievable. That you could have that argument. But they set this standard to assume, like, if you look at the history of like the awards, the accomplishments, Michael Jackson surpasses Taylor Swift by miles. Because by the time even Taylor Swift got like even half of the accomplishments that Michael Jackson has, MJ had already done all of that and done it times 5. So there's really like, people that say that just don't understand like how insane Michael Jackson was. That's the problem. And I'm not trying to disrespect like Taylor Swift. She's popular, but she was not on the level of Michael Jackson.
Nor will she ever be.
What about Beyonce? What if someone told you Beyonce?
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Oh, listen, Beyonce's my girl. I love Beyonce.
Nope.
I love Beyonce. That's my girl right there. But no. It's just I don't, because you have to think about it. Because if we're comparing it, I look at it in 3 ways. What you were able to accomplish with your music, your impact globally, and the legacy you lived. And I think if we're comparing the 3, I don't think Beyonce has done that. Even though Beyonce has broken the Grammy records and has done all that in her career, I just don't think it's ever going to get close to what Michael Jackson did. That's just my opinion. And like, I've heard people try to, and the thing is, I've heard people try to do this with multiple things. Like this, who is it? It was BTS, this like K-pop group. They were trying to say that same thing for them, that they were going to do that. The difference is, for me, when we're talking, again, Michael Jackson, you can go anywhere in the world and put on a Michael Jackson song and you'll have about 20 people know what the heck it is. Like, that's what I consider. Like, if you go to some random remote part of the world, if you put on a Michael Jackson song, I bet you'll have someone who at least knows what the name of it is. Like, because I think that's how much of an impact he had on the world, especially. Like, that's why people, again, to this day, always have, like, when they released all those projects right after he died, it was like, you know, what if Michael was still alive? Like, what more could he have accomplished? And the answer is he could have accomplished way more, but you know, I just don't think anyone's going to be able to ever touch the legacy that he had on the music industry.
What was your favorite song from him, Grant?
So the problem is, again, this is harder for me because he has so many great songs, but this one, not a lot of people really think of, but it's just my personal favorite. It's Dangerous from his 91 album.
Yeah.
I like your style, bro.
It's just like the way the songs start. It's just like, it's not like how a normal song of his would start. And then it just like, they immediately start with the bass, and it's like you hear him whispering, and he's like, "The girl was bad. The girl was," and and it hits right into this. It's beautiful all the way around. It's such a good song. Just for me personally, I think that's one of his best works, and it's extremely underrated work, at least from my eyes.
Dangerous is very underrated. I agree with you.
His 91 album is extremely underrated. It's a lot of people because we got to understand. I'm double checking this so I'm not. This album not only had that song, it had "Remember the Time," "Heal the World," "Black or White," "Who Is It," "Gone Too Soon," and "Jam," all on one album.
God.
I can read the whole list right now. So this is the whole album: "Jam," "Why You Want to Trip on Me," "In the Closet," "She Drives Me Wild," "Remember the Time," "Can't Let It Get Away," "Heal the World," "Black or White," "Who Is It," "Give It to Me," "Will You Be There," "Keep the Faith," "Gone Too Soon," and "Dangerous." That's all on one album.
Oh my God.
Damn.
Oh my
That's
God.
all on one album.
You forget how many bangers he had on that album. Oh my God.
That's on one album.
Big Champ. Favorite
Man,
Beyonce song.
man, shoot, I can't, bro. Grant, man, look, I salute you.
Boy, we all salute him.
I mean, you're not gonna get a better segment than that on music. Hell, man, one of the hidden gems, and I'm gonna go back to the Dangerous album, man. Who Is It was a hit, man. I mean, Who Is It was real good, and it was so underrated. And when it came, it came with a doom, 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 doom. I mean, I ain't gonna tell you how many people I'd have made mad when I was back at the bear because I used to turn it up loud just so you could hear it. So shout out to the 178. My bad, guys. But man, Who Is It, man? And I gotta say another one, man. I gotta say Anything for Money. Anything for Money. That was a man, and I think he was way ahead of his time when he made that damn song because, man, when you look at the stuff that's happening these days, it's ugly. I'm just being real.
No, you ain't lying there.
You ain't lying.
Favorite Michael Jackson song? I got a bunch of them. Gotta Be Starting Something. I just like the beat. And then Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. But You Rock My World. I love that track. I love him and Chris Tucker. Music video. Yeah, man. That was cool. But Mike had all them dance moves, the moonwalk, the glitter. Like, oh my God, man. Grant, you're not exaggerating when you talked about how people were like, they were literally crying to see Michael on stage. Like, my stepfather told me stories about how the ladies back in them days, how they were feeling with Michael because they were so tuned in to see what Michael was going to do. I mean, the dance moves and all that type of stuff, man. And also, too, I love the one with him and Janet.
Scream? Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God, I forgot about
Yes. Don't forget Scream.
Yes.
I mean, Janet Jackson, too. Oh my God, I was listening to that All For You album. Oh, man. Janet, man. The two of them with their dancing, Michael and Janet. Oh my God. That's just fun, man. And we
What's
got
your favorite video by them, though? I mean, what's your favorite video? I gotta ask that.
Michael?
Yeah.
For Michael, I would say Thriller. I love Thriller. No question about it. And from Janet, either All For You or Control.
All right.
Yeah. Or she did one with there was Jennifer Lopez in it. I can't remember the name of the song. That's The Way Love Goes. I think that's the name of the song.
Yes, that's it. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
And people forget J-Lo back in them days too. Remember?
Fly girl.
She was a fly girl.
Yeah, can dance too. Let's not forget that. And also, last but not least, I did it for Grant, and Grant will go first. favorite Shawn Michaels moment.
Oh my God.
All right. So I think I feel like there's a lot of ways you can go with this because for me, and I don't know if you, Champ BRF, y'all know this, Shawn Michaels is my GOAT of all time because I look at it as a guy. So I'm the biggest Shawn Michaels fan, especially because I look at his career in general. He essentially accomplished everything in WWE and still was able to be a top star in the company. But if I have to pick a moment, especially SummerSlam 2002, when he came back for the first time in over 5 years after his back injury, and everyone thought he wouldn't be able to wrestle, because I remember the main thing everyone thought at the time was, would Shawn still be able to complete a match in the way they were building it? Because keep in mind, that match at SummerSlam with Triple H was unsanctioned. So essentially, it was everything goes. You see that, go back and watch that match. If you never have, if anyone who goes and watches that match, Shawn puts on what I believe to be a top 5 Shawn Michaels match of all time. Just from a ring standpoint, how the tempo of the match, the spots they did, the main spot where he jumped off the top turnbuckle onto Triple H into the table. And you can't write it better than that. And the ending when he had the back pin and then he got hit in the back by Triple, just great storytelling, which led into one of the greatest rivalries in the history of WWE. But just, my God, go into back and watch that match. It's a spectacle of work. It was one of Shawn's greatest matches. And I don't think there would be any other way you could talk about a wrestler who was able to have a better return match than what Michaels had.
Champ?
Oh, man. When I think about Shawn, man, Shawn Michaels was one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest. I mean, you think about people sleep on how good the Montreal Screwjob match was because of the controversy, but that was a great match. But if I had to take one, it would have to be 3 Stages of Hell, Armageddon, 2002.
The one with Triple H?
Yes. They was going at it. I watched that. I'm not gonna lie. This when DVR first came out. I'm showing my age, but I had to say, I literally rewind that damn match 3 times after I ordered it. I kept rewinding it because the thing is, it was just that good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody knows. Hey man, Triple H can beat the best of the best in 3 Stages of Hell. Beat The Rock,
Steve Austin,
beat Stone Cold. And even though Shawn Michaels lost that match, for them to be in a lockdown, drag out match like that. Remember the first one? I mean, and it wasn't conventional. Remember the first fall was a street fight, then a steel cage match, then a ladder match.
Then a ladder match.
So for you to go through all of that, man, and although he lost, man, that was nothing short of just spectacular theater, especially back then, man. Triple H, the beginning of Evolution coming into the fold, and Triple H ascending to one of the top heels maybe of all time during that time, where he was just flat out just burying people. And for you to come out and like I said, during that year, to piggyback on Grant, not to steal his thunder, but he had just came back 4 months ago prior to that match. And remember, he won the Elimination Chamber in November, the month before.
I should have done Elimination Chamber.
And then came back and did 3 Stages of Hell. So my thing is, that is one of the greatest matches that you will ever see, especially when you're going against a guy like a Triple H, who was a top heel at the time, the beginning of Evolution, him and Ric Flair. That was memorable, man. That was flat out special.
No doubt about it. BRF.
Oh, Shawn Michaels. Boy, y'all hit a special place in my heart for this one. I feel like, I feel like the two greatest in-ring performers in the history of the sport are Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles. And you can argue with your mama with me about that one. That's just how I feel. If I had to pick one moment, because I practically, because that's what I tell people. Because Champ always talk about his age. I'm older than Champ. I'm a few years older than Champ. So like, I remember Shawn from like the Rockers era. You know how he was basically the Kickstarter for the new generation era, and then kind of like on the back end of the first part of his career, going into the Attitude Era, and then the comeback. I feel like he had a better second run of his career
Than the 90s.
than his 90s runs, and he was winning championships in the 90s. But I feel like his 2002 through his WrestleMania 26 match, that was just like that was just Shawn Michaels, like how good he was. If I had to pick one moment to illustrate why I love him so much, even though he didn't win either match, WrestleMania 25 and WrestleMania 26 with The Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my two favorite WrestleMania matches of all time. I mean, those two guys basically, if Undertaker called himself the last outlaw of the Attitude Era, Shawn Michaels was right there with him. And for them to put on those two, I'm talking about, I still feel, if I had a list of 10 greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, for me, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, even though we just saw what Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns just did, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25 is still my all-time favorite WrestleMania match. Just the storytelling and Shawn just trying to do everything in his power to beat The Undertaker, and really just the beginning of, I feel, the greatest 4-year stretch of Undertaker matches. 25 and 26 with Shawn, 27 and 28 with Triple H, and then Shawn Michaels re-interjecting himself, being a special referee for that Hell in a Cell in the Veneer match for WrestleMania 28.
Oh, yeah.
That 4-year stretch,
especially when he super kicked Taker, and then Triple H with the pedigree.
Bro, I thought
Yeah.
the streak was, when that moment happened, I thought the streak was over.
That's how a lot of us felt. I had a friend who was at that main WrestleMania. He tells me as soon as Shawn kicked him, the whole crowd was screaming and they thought it was over. As soon as he kicked out, he said he's never heard a crowd go that insane over a kick out. Because everyone thought it was over.
I thought
they thought that was it. And when he kicked out, it was like the biggest oh my God moment I've ever seen in my life.
I think for WrestleMania 26 with Shawn is when he kicked out the Tombstone Pile Driver, I think the first or the second time. And then Undertaker had like a huge stun of disbelief on his face.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I like the Jim. It's
Jim Ross one. Oh my God!
Yeah, the WrestleMania 25, the Jim Ross call. I just had an out of body experience with Shawn Michaels kicked out of the Tombstone.
Yeah.
Like just I mean, those matches was just storytelling and psychology. If you're a guy getting into wrestling and you want to understand the full concept of what storytelling and psychology is in a wrestling match, watch WrestleMania 25 and 26, and you will come away from both of those matches and you're just like, okay, I understand now. I can do this. Though for me, if I had to put even though he didn't win any of those matches, that is Shawn Michaels in a nutshell, because he's just,
his record at WrestleMania, right?
It's not good.
It's not good.
It's horrible.
It's not good.
But they call him Mr. WrestleMania.
Mr. WrestleMania because he put off banger after banger. 21, because I'll say this. My other match I was going to say, WrestleMania 21, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels is a 5-star classic.
That's a 5-star match.
That match was unbelievable. WrestleMania 22.
Get a 5-star rating baffles me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't trust Dave Meltzer's ratings, because they don't know. They claim they know what they're talking about, but they just will say stupid stuff.
Like, I'm looking at the Dave Meltzer stuff, and I'm just like, you gonna look at me with a straight face, and you gonna tell me you don't think Kurt Angle's ever had a 5-star match, and you weren't paying attention to WrestleMania 21? You must be joking.
I think it's mainly because, with New Japan and the Japanese form and how it's more fluid and more rhythmic, if that makes sense. The way the pace of the match rolls, I think he prefers that more than the style that WWE does, where rather than tell a story, they want to they actually wrestle. And I think that's what he prefers. But to get really quick,
I agree with that.
To get back to what I was trying to say, WrestleMania, they call him Mr. WrestleMania for a reason. WrestleMania 20, he had that triple threat match between Triple H and the other gentleman, which I'm not gonna say. We know where I'm going with this. 21, Angle versus Michaels. 22, Vince McMahon versus Shawn Michaels. Jumps off the ladder. McMahon's in the trash can with the elbow.
No, go ahead. You forgot some other stuff. Remember when Vince does the cover for a Muscle Men's magazine,
Muscle and Fitness magazine,
and then how Shawn hits him with
that whole feud was so petty.
Only Shawn Michaels could get a match of the year candidate out of Vince McMahon, like just straight up.
Yeah, one of my favorite Shawn Michaels moments. I'm surprised none of y'all mentioned WrestleMania 10, the ladder match with Razor Ramon.
I was gonna mention it, but
I think the SummerSlam ladder match is better, but that's just my opinion.
But I gotta go WrestleMania 12, the Iron Man match between he and Bret the Hitman Hart. I mean, you're talking about two of the greatest in-ring performers. Bret, we all know, consummate professional, in-ring technician, the Hart family. Matter of fact, BRF, correct me if I'm wrong, you were the one who said Owen Hart, rest his soul, was a better technician than even Bret.
Yeah, I and as great as Bret the Hitman Hart was, I stand by that.
Right. And Bret, we all know how great he was in the ring. I thought he had great brawling skills as well. And with Shawn there, an hour-long match and the entrance with Shawn Michaels as he enters WrestleMania 12. That's also iconic for me. And but man, Shawn Michaels, let's be honest, in the 90s, he wasn't the most likable person in the world. And my man Champ, I gotta give him credit because he said it himself. Had Shawn Michaels had not dropped the belt to Steve at WrestleMania 14, Taker would have made an appearance.
I think he said that too, because he wanted Shawn to drop that.
Yeah, he did. Because he wanted business to be taken care of. He said it would have been a long night for Shawn Michaels. But Shawn and Taker, they developed their relationship in 2002. That's when Shawn came back from retirement, not just because of the bad back. He also needed to take some time off because he had a lot of other problems. Taker and Shawn, they have a great relationship from what I know. Taker, back then, he had nothing to do with Shawn. He wanted nothing to do with Shawn as a person, but in the ring, Shawn would be that type of guy. WrestleMania 10 and 12 got to be for me. The other match, I would have to say, Ric Flair's last match. When Shawn hits him with the super kick, and then he tells Rick, I'm sorry, I love you. And Shawn growing up, that was Ric Flair's type of guy he always idolized. Like Ric Flair with the style and everything else, man. And Shawn, man, he had charisma. And the reason, and I told Champ this story, Jim Ross on his podcast, Champ, they paid Shawn $750,000 for 4 years for Shawn to do nothing. And the only reason why they were afraid of that is because, one, Vince viewed him so highly, and he didn't want him to go to their arch rival WCW. But with Shawn, I think funniest moment. No, I don't know if I can't use that one. I don't want to go that far.
I have an all-time funniest Shawn Michaels moment.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. The apex of funny Shawn Michaels was the entire 2006 rebirth of D-Generation X run with him and Triple H.
Yes.
Oh my God. I just kicked Stan.
Man, don't tell me to calm
That
down.
is-
Don't tell me to calm down.
Yeah, exactly. You telling
or
me
when they
I
went to-
don't know how to be controversial? That was one of the funniest things.
Or the headquarters. Remember when he and Triple H at the headquarters?
They spray painted the plane, they spray painted the building, and they mooned the camera at the top of the building. Just oh my God. 2006 DX when they decided to get back together. That was
McMahon's.
Oh,
When Vince banned them from the arena and they went into the production truck and screwed up the mic system so
they
they
painted
would
the
be
mic. Oh my,
Oh my God.
and he's talking like Alvin the Chipmunk. It was
Oh
the
my
most
God, I can't believe
hilarious
all of
stuff
us
I've
forgot
seen in
this
my
moment.
life.
Woo!
It was
We
hilarious stuff
forgot
I've
two
seen in my
moments,
life.
not only from Shawn Michaels, but from D-Generation X. The Monica, remember Bill Clinton with the Monica
Oh
Lewinsky
yeah, the
thing?
G Generation X.
Yes.
Oh, you mean
He's like, we
the
promise
too hot for
not
TV
to curse,
promo?
and immediately curses right after. It's like Sean, right? Oh, my bad. And no.
And of course, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson back in the day joined DX.
I was coming. I was coming.
That whole feud was when him and Stone Cold, when Stone Cold got in the ring, because people don't understand. Around that time, Mike Tyson was the most dangerous man alive. Like,
Yeah.
he killed everybody. And the fact that Austin, the dude who did not care, walked up to Tyson and started talking trash. And as soon as he throws a punch, all you hear from JR goes, Tyson and Austin. It hasn't got a fight going on. It was so crazy. And then when the WrestleMania hit, he counted Austin to win the title for him. And turned on and knocked out Shawn Michaels. Man.
Hey.
And then Jim
Yeah.
Ross is saying, Tyson. Oh my God. We're going to do a favorite Jim Ross moment. Don't forget that. We will do that for next week's show.
And make sure you don't make sure, guys, when you come on, you don't curse, because we all know how Jim Ross was when it came to certain people. And man,
He hated Triple H.
Hated Triple H.
Yeah.
Boy.
I just saw a couple lists the other day of just him like saying everything under the sun about Triple H. I was like, I think Triple H might have just like kidnapped his dog or something. It's just like that's what caused him to be so mad.
Jim Ross put heel Triple H over so good.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Especially SummerSlam. Remember, because to your point, Grant, when Triple H hit Shawn in the back with the sledgehammer, and then we can't use the type of language, but my God, Jim Ross was after like Triple H.
Do you have no heart? Do you have no
soul? Do you realize what you just
Oh,
done?
bro, that ain't nothing compared to how he went in the night after WrestleMania. After WrestleMania 19, when Stone Cold couldn't wrestle anymore.
Eric Bischoff.
Eric Bischoff.
Eric Bischoff.
That right there
Eric
was
Bischoff is
fear.
one lousy, whooping.
I go back to this day and I wonder to myself whether that was real or was that just like him like going out there and pulling a gimmick.
I think it was
didn't
kind of
think it
real
was
because remember Bischoff did fire Austin in '95 in WCW.
That's
So
true.
again, people
That's
will
what I
take that
think.
into consideration.
I think,
'Cause
yeah,
I
I think that was like a work. I think that was like not a true shoot, but it was like a work shoot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree too. But because you watch that if you watch that whole promo he cuts, you hear it at first and it sounds like he's got legit. Because keep in mind, I saw this. They have this really interesting thing during that period, like right after the period, he and Bischoff had tension going on between them. And the storyline that they were pushing, I think, was eventually that they were going to that Jim Ross was going to get fired. And they said, go out there and cut a promo and just basically say, Eric Bischoff isn't this, Eric Bischoff isn't that, blah, blah, blah. And he said, all right, and just proceeds to absolutely crucify this man. And to this day, I still never will be considered that was a work. I still think he was speaking from the heart. Because he was mad.
But Bischoff did piss off a lot of people, and look at the type of talent he let go of WCW. Not just Steve, Mick Foley as well, and look at all the other people that he let go, and how he was running WCW at the time. And and when Jim Ross said it, and we all know how tight Jim and Steve are in terms of their relationship. To me, WWE wise, that's like Ahmad Rashad with Michael Jordan.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, because nobody knows Steve Austin better than Jim. Steve doesn't have that many friends. And remember, DTA, don't trust anybody. If there's certain people that Steve will talk to, Jim Ross will be the first one that Steve will call. That's a fact. But fellas, that's a wrap for the Sports PSP podcast. I appreciate all of y'all for taking y'all time on this Friday night. Hope y'all enjoy a fantastic evening. Final words.
Thank you, PSP. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, man.
I got to admit, like I was charging my phone at the time, and I didn't even realize you had sent me the link. So I picked up my phone and I went and I saw I had a message and I saw it was from you. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting here charging the phone. This man that sent me a link. I'm finna get on here like ASAP. So yeah, man. It's always a pleasure to get on here and do this with you and Champ, man. I feel like we kind of leading this wave of, sports content creators and just trying to really, I feel like we want to take over in a way. We kind of want to do it in our own image. And I feel like we go about doing it the right way. And we want to have fun, and and it's good that we want to bring along other people for the ride, because I feel like if we all, it's not succeeding if we ain't all eating. And so I feel like it's what we really need to be doing. So I definitely appreciate the love from y'all and having me on. It's always a pleasure getting on here, and just, hey man, a topic not thought about is a topic not talked about. Y'all keep on doing what y'all doing, and we just gonna keep this wave rolling.
All right. Appreciate you, BRF. Grant?
No, I appreciate y'all for having me on again. It's always fun just sitting here chatting with y'all. Sometimes chatting, just talk about anything is great. This Sunday, I know y'all don't know about this. I run a soccer channel. That's what mainly most of my content. This Sunday, it's one of the biggest matches in world football. FC Barcelona's playing Madrid. It's El Clasico, and I'm going to be live streaming on that Sunday at 1:30, and I'll drop the link for you boys. Y'all want to come by, drop a like, and just talk. I'm more willing to have a little bit of conversation. We'll just watch the game. We're just gonna try this one out, see how it goes. So I'm working on learning how all the streaming stuff's set up. So, but again, appreciate y'all for having me on. It's always fun to talk about this stuff, and it's always a good time. It's always a problem.
And folks, if y'all wondering, Grant just sent in the link. There it is right here. So go follow Grant. Go like and subscribe to his TikTok and his IG, man. Does great content. Grant, tell them where to follow you at, man.
Grant on YouTube, and then GGlips23 all over the platforms. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, anywhere that nature. That's where you'll find me.
BRF, tell them where to follow you at, man.
Follow me. Well, of course, the main page is the TikTok, BRF Sports. Follow the IG. Follow the Twitter /X. I also have a Facebook page. Follow that as well. Those are my main streams of where I do most of my content posting. So I have a link tree in my TikTok bio. Click that. All of my links are there. Feel free to join it. I also have a Discord that I opened up a while back. So if y'all want to get in there, I need new members of the Discord. If y'all want to get on there, cut it up, talk something with me, feel free. Just click the link tree, click it, and just come. Hey, just join up with the experience, man. I'm having a blast doing this, and I'm glad I got good people I can share this with.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Undisputed World Champ. Tell them where to follow you, man.
Number one, thank you, PSP, as always. Always a privilege and an honor to be on your show.
Thank you.
Follow me on TikTok, Undisputed World Champ. Instagram, World Champ _2.0. And next week, special draft show, Wednesday, the night before the draft, on the Undisputed GOAT podcast.
Yes, and go make sure you like and subscribe to his podcast. And y'all know me. Y'all know where to follow me at Sports PSP. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as IG, as well as TikTok Sports PSP 3. 1.55 subscribers on YouTube. I'm doing great things, man. Fantastic. Couldn't do it without, of course, Grant BRF, Undisputed World Champ. Shout out to all the other great content creators as well. Casual, Hot Take Kenny, Maria, of course, Brandon from the block. Luis, go check out his podcast as well. Last Word. Go check out all the other content creators. Shout out to Trent as well. He is doing a fantastic job with his college football and NFL podcast. Also, go check out the Players' Choice as well, man. They do a lot of great content as well. And fellas, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all weekend. And everyone else, enjoy the rest of y'all weekend. Enjoy the NBA playoffs. Enjoy the NFL draft next week. And we is out.